Okie dokie. So if you've been playing Dune like I have, you are bombarded with the many skill trees available to you. And you've probably wondered to yourself, what is actually worth taking and what is perfectly fine to skip? Because you have only a limited amount of skill points to work with, and not every perk is worth taking. And in this skill tree in particular, this helped me learn that damage in this game is a complete fucking lie. And some of you, I can already anticipate, are gonna freak the hell out over this. And for others, especially if you watched my Planetologist video last, where we covered that skill tree, some of this may not be a big surprise to you, but you're still probably not going to like it. I personally am not a big fan of what they did to damage in this game. We'll start off simple. Reflexive Reload is the Spice Prescience trait in the Tactical Tech tree. As long as Prescience is active, when you throw a grenade or drop a mine, you instantly reload. I have confirmed it works exactly as it describes. There doesn't seem to be a cooldown other than the cooldown of however long it would take you to throw another grenade or drop another mine. Battle Hardened. This one is seemingly really cool, but also really depressing. The reason for this is Battle Hardened increases your cooldown reduction by 30%. That is obviously extremely useful. It works exactly as it should. I didn't see any bugs with it. However, the problem is it only works on anything from Trooper. So if you're trying to use Battle Hardened to get cooldown reduction for all of your cooldowns on all of your abilities, it doesn't work. Easy way to test this is just take the knee punt from Swordmaster, put the cooldown technique on, and see what your cooldown is, see if it changes at all. It doesn't. Battle Hardened does work. I see a lot of people in my comments from the Planetologist video that were claiming that Battle Hardened doesn't work, or you had to relog or something like that. It does work. It does precisely what it should. Just only for Trooper, which sucks. When it comes to the damaging abilities, this is something else you guys aren't going to like. The damaging abilities all do what they should, but all of them have a PvP damage reduction modifier. And, well, I guess a better way to phrase that would be all players have a damage reduction against ability damage, and only ability damage, mind you. So when I threw a grenade at my friend at level 1, it's supposed to do 75 damage, instead it does 32. Then I threw the Assault Seeker at my friend, it's supposed to do 80 damage, but instead it does 34. And if you keep testing with all these abilities against your friends in a PvP zone, so that way you can actually deal damage to them as you should to another player, you're going to notice that you're only actually dealing about 42% of the damage that you should. And it's consistent across all the different abilities that we tried, because we even went over to the Trooper Knee Punt, and at level 1, that's supposed to do, what was it, 50 damage? But instead it did 20. So if you are in PvP, just please be aware. And it kind of makes sense as to why this is a thing, because sometimes your abilities can do like 2,000 damage. Just be aware that pretty much every player has 60% ability damage reduction. Next up is Suspensor Efficiency. This does reduce your power drain on your suspensors exactly as it would state. It reduces it by 20%. And in turn, that 20% reduction in power drain creates a 25% longer duration that you could have your suspensor active. Last up before we get to the damage perks, which are the overwhelming majority of Trooper shit, is Underslung Agility. This reduces the movement speed penalty that you have when you have a heavy weapon equipped. However, when we were testing this, we had one specific instance where it almost tripled our speed, and I have no clue how to reproduce that bug. So just note that sometimes, in conditions unknown to me, because I don't feel like spending 3 hours trying to re-follow all the steps I did on stream, sometimes this thing might bug the fuck out and make you move at the speed of light. JK, not last. I forgot we need to talk about the repair stuff. With field maintenance, this reduces the amount of durability you lose per action on a gun. So in my case, I took a Mala pistol, I shot it 500 times without this, and then I shot it 500 times with this, and I was able to see that the durability per shot, I was able to see that you're able to shoot 40% more bullets before breaking your Mala pistol than you are without this. So basically, think of this perk to mean you can use your weapons for 40% longer before you have to repair them. On top of that, you have the Gunsmith perk, and instead of reducing the durability drain of every shot fired, this is, if you watch the Planetologist video, it's a lot like the vehicle repairs perk. It reduces the maximum durability loss. And it, again, comes in as another multiplier. So if you wanted to calculate the max durability that you would lose on any given repair, because you're not always going to repair 0 to 100%. You might repair from 70% up to 90%, something like that. If you wanted to calculate that durability loss, you would take the amount to repair as a percent. So if you had durability at 70%, but you had no max durability loss, and you had up to 100% available, that means the percent to repair would be 30%, and then you would multiply it by 1 minus the repair quality of a repair station, which is 80% by the way. If you want to understand repair quality better, that really mainly pertains to vehicles with welding torches, please go watch the Planetologist video. But just so you know, the repair quality of a repair station is 80%, and then you would do times 1 minus the perk reduction, which is 25%. So basically, an easy way to put this in perspective that I didn't do in the Planetologist video, and I really should have, and that's my bad, because there's a lot of people that think it's not a big deal. This perk on weapons, even though it's less than the Planetologist vehicle perk, it's 25% instead of 35, means you can go from 500% total repairs possible up to 666% total repairs possible. That means it is a 30% gain in how long you get to use your weapon before it breaks completely. And to put this in perspective on the Planetologist video, if you get the Planetologist vehicle repair perk, that is a 53% increase in the amount of time you get to use any of your vehicle parts before they break. When I was explaining it in the Planetologist video, I have to apologize because in my mind this just clicked and I didn't think I needed to explain it. I'll clarify explicitly here. Maximum durability loss reductions via skill perks are exponential gains. Even if there are tiny gain in the overall max durability lost in a single repair, it adds up over all of them. It is massive. So please do not sleep on perks that reduce max durability loss. They will always be worth it and save you an immense amount of materials in the long run. Now let's talk about damage. Sorry to put this last, but frankly, I know all of you are skipping to this anyways, so blow me. In order to talk about the damage perks, we need to talk about how damage itself functions on a weapon. Because say you took your friend into a PvP zone, you kick him out of your party so that way friendly fire is enabled, and then you take out an adept drill shot and shoot him in the head. You would expect to do the damage stated on the weapon, 104.8 or higher, because you just shot him in the head. Maybe there's a headshot multiplier. I'm here to tell you, you will never deal that 104.8, and you will always deal less. And some of you are going to freak the fuck out over this. Because if you've watched the Planetologist video and you're familiar with how I described mining yields, and I gave you the formulas for that, how to actually calculate what benefits what, all that jazz, please go watch the Planetologist video. This is going to be extremely similar. Because that 104.8 is sort of correct, but not. Instead, what we do to get our damage on any given shot, be it a body shot or a headshot, is we take the 104.8, or whatever the stated damage is on your weapon, and for body shot damage, we multiply that number by 0.4, meaning you do 40% of the normal damage on a body shot. Now that's actually incorrect to say normal damage because you're never ever going to get as high as 104.8. 104.8 shouldn't be considered the normal damage. That's my bad. But body shots deal 40% of the stated damage, and headshots deal 60% of the stated damage. They never combine to give you the full number. You will always deal less. As such, let's talk about the damage perks, how they add into those numbers, so on and so forth. Ranged damage. This one's pretty straightforward. It starts at 3, 6, and 9% damage increases. This applies to every single range damage period, and I tested all of them. And to clarify, this does not, unlike mining yields, this isn't specific to one bracket or the other. This does help both body shot damage and range damage. Now let's talk about disruptor damage. A lot of you probably think that this helps your snub-nose disruptor. You would be wrong. This only modifies the regular disruptor rifle. It does not modify your snub-nose pistol, which is a fucking shame because the snub-nose feels like sex to shoot. But otherwise, when it comes to how the damage adds in, it does add in to the same exact bucket as range damage.
Sector weather alert. A large sandstorm is approaching.
Thank you, Sandstorm Warning. I don't know what I'd do without you. So instead of your range damage being a multiplier of 1.09, which would be this 9% bonus, you add 1 plus 0.09 plus 0.15, which would be the 15% bonus of the Disruptor perk. Oh, and real quick, before we move on to the different weapon category damage types, I did want to clarify, on the Spitdart, a lot of people I saw were curious if range damage or any damage bonuses could ever scale the poison damage. They do not. The Spitdart, or at least the Adept Spitdart, will always deal 32 poison damage, and that cannot be modified by anything that we have tested yet. However, the bullet itself of the Spitdart sniper will obviously be increased by the associated damage perks that can apply to... Fuck. I get the sandstorm is approaching, Jesus woman, but obviously the bullet of the Spitdart will still be modified by range damage bonuses and sniper damage bonuses in particular, which I believe are in the Mentat tree, which we'll talk about later. When it comes to scattergun damage and heavy weapon damage, everything functions exactly how you would expect. However, I will say, while the drill shot shotgun, which is basically like a slug shotgun if you're unfamiliar with it, that one can get headshot damage. I need to clarify, the scattergun cannot. I tried literally inserting my shotgun barrel into the mouth of my friend and pulling the trigger, and I could not manage to get headshot damage no matter what. So when you are using a scattergun, please note, headshot damage is fucking impossible. Do not spec into headshot damage perks, and make sure that if you are calculating the damage math ahead of time, that you're using the 40% body shot modifier. And then that's it for the more like specific damage bonuses. Now let's talk about Energy Capsule. Energy Capsule is, I mean, it's pretty free.
Sector weather alert.
Oh my
A large
god.
sandstorm is approaching.
Chortle my balls, Sandstorm Warning Lady. Chortle them. Chortle them good. Holy fuck, shut up. It says a 35% damage bonus. That is accurate, but again, you need to note that the damage bonuses here are additive. None of the damage bonuses I could find are multipliers. So that 35%, say I was using a Disruptor, not the Snub Nose, because obviously we know that doesn't gain the Disruptor damage bonus, but say I used a regular Disruptor. I would get the 9% from here, so 0.09 plus 0.15 plus 0.35 from Energy Capsule. That is the biggest fucking damage bonus available to ranged weapons, I think, out of all the skill trees. I could be wrong on that, but we'll check it later. If you want free damage with a tiny ass cooldown, take this, because this paired with the 30% cooldown reduction on Battle Hardened, this comes up really fucking quickly. Last but not least is Death from Above. Similar to Energy Capsule, it does add in to the same additive damage buckets as everything else we've been using. So if we had a Disruptor and we were suspended in the air, we would get 0.09 plus 0.15 plus 0.2. And this is a solid 20% damage bonus, very easily accessible. The only thing I would say is bad about this, and if you watched my Suspensor video explaining all the different belts and how the durability works, you'll understand this already, is in order to use this, you most often are going to be using a planar or a responsive belt in order to maintain a horizontal position. But the problem with that is if you're elevating yourself to that point and then just holding still as you aim, sure, you might get better stability to aim at your targets, but you also elevate yourself and basically shoot out a giant flare that says, here I am, fuck me up. So while this is a really cool damage perk, extremely easily accessible with no cooldowns or anything like that, just note that if you do use this seriously in a PvP setting, you are probably going to get ass fucked. I keep saying last, but then it's not actually last because I forgot something else. Center of mass. This is last. Trust. For real this time. This one is an interesting one. I was kind of curious if it would work a couple different ways. Thankfully, it does work basically how you would expect if you've done any math for damage in other games before. But what this means is it takes your damage on a body shot, so that 40% split, and then it takes all the other damage bonuses you would normally be getting. And so let's say, again, just as an example, we're using a Disruptor. We would get 0.09, so 9% plus 15% plus 20% on a body shot. However, this does mean that if you do get a headshot, you need to remember that this 10% negative is still additive to the bonuses you have thus far. So if I did a headshot instead of being 0.09 plus 0.15, it would just be 0.09 plus 0.15 minus 0.1. So if you landed a headshot, it would basically change the 15% bonus here to a 5% bonus here, and then you'd still add in the passive range damage bonus of 9%. Just keep in mind that the bonuses here are additive to the normal damage bonuses you've been getting, but only in their respective categories. So body shot damage only helps that 40% body shot split, and headshot damage will take away from the 60% headshot split. The rest that I haven't talked about are just basically crowd control abilities. Gravity Field is actually really useful if you're going up. I tend to use this, not in this current skill tree, obviously, I just respect for shit. But Gravity Field tends to be something really useful. Say you have like 4 or 5 melee guys coming at you. You can throw down a Gravity Field to slow them all down. And then whichever one gets out first is obviously going to get to you the fastest. And you can kill them, do your slow attacks, get through their shields, penetrate that shit. And in my experience, most of the time, by the time you're done killing that first guy, another guy will get out of the Gravity Field. It does slow them down quite a lot. So Gravity Field is a really handy way of sort of funneling enemies to you when you're being overwhelmed. Collapse Grenade is another way to handle that, though I kinda dislike the duration. It doesn't last for nearly as long as the Gravity Grenade, so I personally prefer that, but other people might like Collapse Grenade better. And then Attractor Field. Attractor Field kind of pairs hand in hand with Center of Mass, because Attractor Field will basically, if you've ever played Warframe and played with Mag, I don't know if she even still has this ability anymore, but she can put bubbles around enemies that magnetize all the bullets to their center mass. So this is a lot like that. You throw this at someone, and then any shots you shoot at the sphere will go and hit their body. It's a way to ensure that you don't miss, but you're never also going to get headshots. The Trooper perks are extremely fucking good. The repair perks, the damage perks, all the above. It's just a bummer that the game's damage system completely debates you with how they decided, and they obviously, and normally I don't like to bag on devs, but I absolutely disagree with their choice to display damage like that when it's completely fucking misleading. But all the same, hope you enjoyed. Please ask questions down below if you have any. I may have forgotten to mention something offhand. Just let me know. And then I will be back in 2 more days after my respec cooldown hits, and we will talk about another tree.